Scented and Mero could easily be 2022's best duo, or they'll play second. So let's see how these guys have adapted to duos in Chapter 3. These guys have chosen the Sleepy Sound as their drop spot of choice, the south side to be specific, which seems to be very common with the top pros so far, as this is one of the best POIs in this season. If you're landing at a contested POI, you have to be able to understand how to fight there, and these guys got this down to a T. Notice in this fight how Mero ends up going over to the right, whereas Scented is over on the left. They're split. They're taking different angles because they know where this opponent is. Then Mero gets this big beam off to start with because the Mark 7 is incredibly powerful, and instantly after this, Scented shoots from the left-hand side at an angle that the opponent was not covering. Even if these Mark 7s weren't so strong, this would have been a huge fight opener and still definitely could have potentially picked him up given this opponent was only 150 HP. Just look at how fast this guy's HP goes down. He's almost completely out of it before he can even react. And that's due to the fact that these guys both picked up a very simple split, but a really good pinch. Then Fake Tfue is no match in the 1v2. Pinching is absolutely critical when it comes to fighting in duos, and it's a basic fundamental of nearly every single fight. If we take a look at one of the mid-game fights, we can see another variation of this. Since they're playing the aggressive team here, this other team is boxed up and they have a too long box. Now you can see that Scented is the end of one box, whereas Mero is at the end of the other. They're pinching from each end of what would be a long tube. If they went for walls on the sides, the opponents have more opportunity to get out. I like the Scented is actually going for a floor on the roof here, as this creates different angles that the team inside need to prevent against holding different build pieces. They can't just hold the walls from every single side. And if you watch this from the opponent's perspective, you'll see how chaotic this is and just how difficult this is to get out of a situation like this. This fight setup will work even on larger tiles. You can see there's a 3x2 box these opponents set up here, whereas Mero's on the roof of one side and Scented is on the wall at the complete opposite side here. If you are split like this, you do have to be careful for large beams coming out from third parties, however, as you've always got to protect your angles while doing this. And the trend I saw with this team is that after they do this, the majority of the fights end up in them just collapsing inside of the box and just spraying on them all out. We know what the meta is like by this point. If you're really getting pressured, it's worth just using materials, creating more of a snake tarp so you have plenty of exits to get away from. Especially if you make this longer in metal, you'll be able to run back through this into the harder materials and be safer. When an opponent has created a bunch of spaces, it's important to take as many build pieces as possible. As you can see from one side, Scented is trying to go in on an end inside through the building and does a good job of going one-to-one with the opponent, not necessarily picking him up. At the same time, Mero's taking an opportunity of walls that are left open whilst trying to wall replace more of the build pieces on his own. This then allows him that when an opponent walks through, not knowing that he'd taken that wall because he thought he had this box filled himself, to pick up an easy elimination. If Scented hadn't overcommitted and gone way too deep into the opponent's builds, it would have taken him time to get out and had an opportunity that Mero could have lost the 1v1, but because they stayed relatively close to each other while being aggressive and not overcommitting, they managed to get back together and pick up a very easy 1v2. Now, we all know what the meta is like with spraying of the Mark 7 and also the SMG, but how do you actually counter this? Because the rate of fire makes this incredibly different. We'll notice in this clip where Mero is starting to be focused by the entire lobby because he's rotated a little bit later and he's on the dead side. But notice that Scented is staggered a little bit further behind, and as soon as that guy on height peaks, Scented gets a tag on him, and this now deters them from spraying Mero, meaning that Mero can easily tarp in and create great space for himself. Interestingly enough, they then actually double spray later on and pick up a full elimination on this, take height, and then win the game from here. But the rotation strategy was great because they'd staggered a little bit between each other, given some space, which made them start spraying Mero, but that left them open for Scented to get easy tags back on them. This can also be done in a mid-game rotate if you need to get Storm Surge and you need people to overpeak. There are tons of other good examples that this team does of this. You can see yet again in this rotate, Mero's starting to get sprayed by multiple teams in the lobby, and this actually allowed Scented to get huge beams off on both of the geos. They then pushed and then picked up the easy eliminations. So you can easily Uno reverse card the strategy onto them and flip it right back at them. They've even managed to make a free rotate to 5th zone by going early, not even building. Then when the team opens up, they just instantly spray back in return, making it show that it wasn't safe. And that's when they started building to make themselves into the 5th zone. And again, they won this game from here on out as well. Hope you guys enjoyed this video and learned a lot. Peace.